Hello, Jenifer.
Yeah.
Neil Waters.
Hi, Neil.
How's things?
Yeah, not bad. I'm just going to go outside because my signal keeps dropping.
Yeah, fair enough.
But it just started to rain here, so
Oh, okay. Are you still in
yeah.
Gippsland?
No, I live in Queensland these days.
Oh, okay, yep.
It's done nothing but rain on and off for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, fair enough. Summer rain's pretty common up there though, isn't it?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, no worries. Loud and clear.
Oh, okay. Are we being recorded now or not?
We are. I can edit out whatever you want me to edit out, like your name if you don't want your name in there.
Well, no, I'm happy for you to call me Jenifer.
All right.
I just wanted to disclose to you what I do for a living in case that's an issue.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Go for it. What do you do?
I'm a psychic channeler.
Oh, cool. No, that's not an issue.
Oh, good.
No, that's not an issue. I've
Some people
dealt with
could be.
psychics a few times actually.
Yeah, well, the sighting I had was in my 20s, so, it had nothing to do with what I do for a living these days.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. All good. So, Jenifer, tell me about what happened and what year was it when you had your encounter anyway?
It was 1991.
Yeah.
And I lived in a small coastal town in South Gippsland, Victoria.
Yeah.
And I worked in another town called Leongatha. And there was another girl that lived in the same street as me, and she worked in Leongatha. So we used to carpool to work because
Okay.
it was a good hour's drive, bit over an hour's drive to get there and get home. So we'd carpool, and this one particular day she drove. And we were coming home, so it was about 5:35 roughly.
In the evening.
It was October 1991.
Yep.
And we were driving along the Leongatha Inverloch Road. There's not a lot of houses along the road, it's all farmland. And this particular stretch, you don't see a house at all near the road. I don't know what it's like today. But in those days, there were no houses. There were farms, but way off the road. So we're driving, she was driving, I was in the passenger seat, and we're driving along, and on my side of the road, I could see there was a dog on the side of the road, or what I thought was a dog.
Okay.
And we've driven past it, and we both looked at each other and went, that was no dog. So we did a U-turn and went back and stopped just before it. So we were on the opposite side of the road watching it for a good 5 minutes. I think about 3 minutes after we'd stopped and we were observing it, another woman in a car stopped and had a look as well. So there were 3 of us that sighted it.
Okay.
And so it was standing on like the shoulder of the road, but the grassy bit, and there's like a open drain there which had long grass in it, and it was quite strange because it was behaving like a cat. It was like stalking something in the grass. I knew it was a Tasmanian tiger, as we called them in those days, because of the stripes on its back. It just, like from a distance, it had looked like a dog, but of course once we passed, we realised it wasn't because of these stripes along its rump and the weirdness of its tail. Its tail is really thick near its rump.
Yep.
And it sticks out. It doesn't relax like a dog. It wasn't relaxed like a dog's tail.
Yep.
Its stance was more like a cat. Ready to pounce on something. It was really stalking something in the grass, and it's like we had full view of it. Its snout was long but square. Pointy ears. Very short fur.
Okay. What colour was
not
the
long
fur?
or anything like that, and stocky legs. It only looked, well, I wouldn't call it old, but I wouldn't call it a pup either. It was probably about, I don't know, 5 years old maybe.
Okay, and
in really good condition,
yeah,
really looked healthy and everything. And so we sat and watched it for about 5 minutes, and then it just jumped. It just jumped over the ditch into the paddock and took off.
so you could see it going off in the distance?
Only slightly, because the grass was long in the paddock. The grass was long on the side of the road and into the paddock.
Okay. What colour was the animal?
It was like a tanny,
Like a fawn colour?
yeah, fawn colour, a tanny colour. At the time I had a kelpie.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it was tan and white, and that's why I had noticed it on the side of the road as we were coming along, because it looked like my dog sort of thing, but mine had a white stomach, and so it was very close to that colour, maybe a little bit darker. And then of course it had the stripes on its back, but not all the way up the back. It was only from like the middle to the rump.
Okay.
And onto the tail.
And you mentioned your dog being a kelpie. Was it similar size? Was it bigger?
It looked different, a different shape. Like, from a distance it looked like a dog, but once you got up you could tell the tail was different, the snout was different, it was too long, it was too square. That might sound weird, but it just seemed squarish. And the legs were different. It just didn't have the same form as a, dog.
Okay.
Very stocky legs, not stocky, muscly, legs, but stocky, slim legs.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to describe. Like the leg size didn't sort of match the length of the body size. Does that sound strange?
So it looked long, but the legs didn't necessarily look that tall.
Yeah, it looked like the legs should have been a bit taller to match the height of the animal.
Okay.
But yeah.
What
So
sort of
stocky
distance?
legs. But like I said, it was doing this behaviour like a cat.
So when you
that's-
say behaviour like a cat, it was crouching down, was it?
It was like it was stalking something, not in a ball on the ground or anything. It was standing up, but it just had this stance like a cat would before it pounced.
Okay. And what sort of distance were you from it?
Well, we passed it on the road, so probably 2 meters away when we passed it. When we stopped, we probably stopped about 5 meters before we got to it. We didn't want to scare it off. I mean, in those days, we're talking about no mobile phones and people don't carry cameras around. I mean,
Sure.
Certainly if we had one, we would have been taking photos.
Yeah.
So, there was no way we were just going to keep driving. Both of us wanted to go back and check it out and make sure that was what we really saw.
Yeah.
And like I said, another woman stopped in a car and had a look.
And did you speak to her when it took off?
No, we didn't get out. She took off once it jumped into the paddock and took off.
Do you remember talking to anybody else about it at the time, or you sort of kept it to yourselves?
No, we talked about it because we did that road twice a day, 5 days a week. So we would look out for it all the time, but of course never saw it again.
Yep.
We told other people, but they just thought we were,
Wacko.
yeah, wacko. Maybe been smoking too much or having too many drinks. I didn't really drink in those days, so
Sure.
that wasn't true. So you just, it wasn't something that you openly ran and told everybody. But if the subject came up, I certainly would say to people, "Well, I've seen one, so I know they exist."
Yeah.
They're not extinct.
Are you familiar with lots of other sightings in the area since?
No, because I haven't lived down there for 23 years, so
Oh,
I've been
okay.
up in Queensland.
Well, you'd be pleased to know that there's literally hundreds of sightings down in that area.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, there is.
Oh,
They're
fantastic.
well
Yeah,
documented, all the way down to Wilson's Promontory, back
yeah.
around to Wonthaggi, and even further north up towards Lang Lang.
Oh, yeah. Well,
And
see, that, and they could travel through all those farms to get to all those places.
yeah, there's lots of good
You
country
know?
down there for them, and there's plenty of game as well for them to prey on.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's great. And like I said, this one looked really healthy. You know,
Okay.
not old, really healthy, you know, probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 years old.
Yep. Compared
You
to,
know,
say, a German Shepherd, was it as big as that or a bit smaller?
no, it would have been probably as long as a German Shepherd. It's hard to say because the tail is, it protrudes out, it doesn't hang down.
Yep.
So it sort of obscures your perception of what their length would be.
Because the tail looks too big for it, sort of thing.
Well, yeah, because it sort of sticks out. It doesn't relax down.
Yeah, yeah.
But I would say, you know, maybe a small. Oh, it's hard to say. Like a German Shepherd has longer legs compared to its body.
Yeah.
And this had stumpier legs, you know. Yeah.
No, that's...
So it's sort of hard to compare it. It definitely wasn't a dog.
Yeah, and it certainly wasn't a mangy fox.
Exactly, and certainly if we had just driven past and just had that fleeting moment as we drove past, then I would question what I saw. But because we actually did a U-turn and sat and watched it for 5 minutes,
Yeah, you got a good look at it.
We knew exactly what we were looking at.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. And it was October, you said?
Yeah, it was about October
Yep.
1991.
So the grass would have been pretty tall then, because it's right at the end of the growing season, just about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And see, this is what it was doing. It was stalking something in the longer grass. It was on the side of the road, on the bank to a drain, and the drain had really tall grass in it, and then the grass was tall behind the drain and into the paddock.
Yeah.
But it was stalking something inside that drain. I don't know what it was. We couldn't see that, and certainly there was long grass.
Yep.
But yeah, there was something it wanted in that drain. Didn't get it, probably because we disturbed it, but...
Yeah, they're a strange animal. They kind of look like a dog, they run like a horse and act like a cat.
Oh, right, so it is documented that they act like a cat.
Yeah, in their behaviour, they kind of do that cat stalky thing quite often. That's reported quite a bit.
Oh, right,
If
okay, I
people
haven't
see
heard
them
that.
in different, kind of situations, but it's also noted in their historical behaviour as well, from Tasmania in particular.
Yeah, because that really stood out,
Yep.
you know, that behaviour, that stalking, because I hadn't seen a dog do that before.
Yeah, right. There's at least 3 times as many sightings on the mainland as there is in Tasmania.
Yeah, well, you know, there's lots of thick bush in Tasmania, so they can hide a lot better, can't they?
Yeah, that's it.
But my thought is that they were so persecuted that, of course, they'd be shy of humans and steering away from as many as they possibly could. It would be...
It would make perfect sense. Yeah.
It would be part of their behaviour patterns that they would have been, taught.
It would be built into their DNA. Stay away from people. Yeah.
Exactly.
People are bad news.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of nature's like that, but apex predators are very wily at the best of times, and these particular animals tend to be very solitary. It's not very often you hear of multiple ones in a sighting. And if it do, it's usually a mother with some young. It's very rarely 2 adults seen together.
Yeah. Well, this one was on its own.
Yeah.
You know, and I was quite amazed that it was on the side of the road. You know, mind you, the other car and ourselves were the only cars we saw.
Yeah.
Like, you know, in those days, I don't know what it's like now. Like I said, I don't live down there anymore. But it certainly wasn't a busy road. You
Awesome. No, that's excellent. That's a great recount. You obviously never forgot it.
Was doing while we turned around and pulled up and watched it for 5 minutes, and I know it was a good 5 minutes because we sat there and talked about it. And amazed, you know, that we were actually seeing what we were seeing.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's one of those experiences that you never forget. You never forget the details of.
Yeah, because it's so unique.
That's how unusual it was to see it.
Yep. Exactly. Oh, well, that's excellent. And are you still in touch with the other lady that saw it with you, or you that?
No, look, we weren't close friends back then. I was a bit older than her, and the next year I moved to Melbourne to study horticulture, so I didn't. You know, and then a couple of years later I moved up here.
Yep, fair enough.
So I, didn't really keep in touch with her. I'm sure she still lives there. Her family were, you know, from that area, so they still live in that small town, I'm sure.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we had...
You know, and I still have family down there. My mum still lives in Monthaggy, and I've got a sister in Inverloch, and I've got one in Cairnborough, so...
Oh, okay,
you know, not that I can get down there because we're not allowed to. But,
yeah.
You know, so I still do go down there, but that was the only time I ever saw it.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. They do tend to use the same routes, but the regularity of that is sometimes a bit of a mystery, I suppose. Sometimes they're seen in the same area by more than one witness over a few months, and then they're not seen there again for 4 or 5 years or 2 years, you know.
Yeah.
So it's...
Well, I suppose that's how they've managed to survive, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. They're very elusive, and they know not to hang around in one place for too long, and they'd probably follow the game around a fair bit too. You know, as the roos and the wallabies move around, they would follow them, no doubt.
Do you know that's what they eat?
Oh yeah, they definitely. We often find kangaroos or wallabies with their heads torn off and their lungs missing.
Oh, okay.
And they're known to be blood feeders, like quolls. Quolls are blood feeders. So they often, you know, they're very targeted with the way they feed. They don't eat the whole thing they kill. They just take certain bits and leave the rest. So, I mean, in Tasmania, the devils would follow the tigers around, and the tigers would follow the Aboriginal people around originally. So everything was feeding off of each other, sort of thing, because the tigers wouldn't take everything, and then the devils would clean up the scraps, what was left behind. So there was a bit of a pattern of movement that sort of went that way for probably quite some time in Tassie till whites got here. But yeah, the headless kangaroo thing, we find them all over Australia.
Right.
That's very common. In Queensland as well, up around Cairns and stuff. There's been quite a lot of sightings, and people do see a lot of headless wallabies and stuff up there as well. So never say never is what I like to say.
Yeah, well, you know, that's encouraging, isn't it? That there could be quite big populations of them.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a lot still in Tassie?
Yeah, I think the numbers are building up generally everywhere. It's hard to say how many would be anywhere, but there are literally dozens and dozens of sightings hotspots all over Australia. So, you know, for example, the Blue Mountains, that whole South Gippsland area, the Nullarbor Plain, the Flinders Ranges in South Australia, the lower southeast of South Australia, even the Adelaide Hills gets quite a few sightings. So they're very clever animals. I think they probably hold out in old mine shafts and things like that, caves during the day.
And they're probably seen at a distance quite often, and people just assume they're a dingo or something.
Yeah, I've got 2 reports from New South Wales where people accidentally shot them on their properties thinking they were dingoes from a distance, and then panicked and buried them and kept it all quiet, but told the odd person, and they've sort of filtered the information off to me. But You know, at this stage, we still don't have any physical dead animal to prove that they do exist. So ultimately, science wants something to cut up, sadly.
Oh, yes. Well, I'm happy for them to stay elusive.
Yeah, I am too. I'd like to, get the record set straight just so the government are a little bit more responsible with the way they handle our natural environment. Banning 1080 and things like that would be good, because that's a pretty horrible way to control animals. It's pretty cruel.
Unless there's money in it for them, they're only going to do what serves them.
Yeah, that's
not
it.
What's right for the animals or right for the people.
Sadly, you're completely correct.
Politics in there.
Yeah.
Politics in there. I mean,
It's the mainstay of everything these days, sadly.
Yeah.
All right
I
then.
think it's up to us to do the.
Yeah, well, it
after our environment, rather than rely on the government to do anything that's
absolutely.
right.
They've got millions of dollars to throw at trying to clone one, but do you think they'd give someone like myself a few bucks to help try and prove it? No way.
I'm sure if you were a scientist and you wanted to prove that they didn't exist, they would throw money at you.
Yeah. Well, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to prove they don't exist, but like I say to a lot of people, absence of evidence is not evidence of an absence.
Yes,
so
exactly.
It doesn't prove anything. It just what seems to be the case is every year there's something rediscovered that they've said's been extinct for years and years. So clearly their extinction model is flawed.
Yeah.
Because they get it wrong often. But anyway, that's all good. I appreciate your story. That's fantastic.
No worries. Sorry it was 1991.
No, that's fine. It doesn't matter, because it just fits in with the pattern of the behaviour in the area anyway. There's literally dozens and dozens of sightings all down that Mornington Peninsula, right down to Wilson's Promontory and beyond. Even right around to... what's that other place on the coast there, close to the New South Wales border? Is it Orbst? Or Omeo? Omeo.
Yeah, Omeo.
All the way up around there, there's sightings of them too, right up into the Great Divide. So I don't think they've ever been extinct on the mainland. Science is just a long time catching up with the facts, that's all.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Exactly.
All right. Well, look, I really appreciate your time, Jenifer. Thanks very much for that.
No worries. Glad I could help.
Excellent. You have a great day. Thanks for your time.
You too. Bye.
Cheers.